Hello everyone, good evening, and I hope you are all doing well and going through the lectures also. Listening to the lectures and taking down the notes also. If you have any doubts, I have been telling you to interact, but none of you are doing that. But let keep interacting. If you have any doubts, don't put away all reading because your exams will not be expected soon. Anyhow, you may have your final in sem end exams of fourth semester probably in month of June we can expect. So try to be studious, keep reading, and let us continue the yesterday's lecture that is on the discourse in the novel. And out of the 7 points that are there, 7 parts that are there in the essay, we have seen the introductory part where Bakhtin, of course, introduced how the old stylistics were inefficient in dealing with the uniqueness of the novelistic discourse, and also what is important to understand the unique novelistic discourse is the idea that language is a social phenomena or discourse is a social phenomena in its entire range is what he has stated in the introduction, and that unless we know that language is a social phenomena, we cannot recognize the uniqueness of the novelistic discourse. And old stylistics, according to Bakhtin, is inefficient to deal with the uniqueness of novelistic discourse because it is by nature an evaluation of the personal craftsmanship. That is what he stated in the introduction. And then the next part, that is modern stylistics and the novel. We have seen some important points in which he was explaining how in the modern stylistics to there was an attempt to yeah analyze the novelistic discourse, yet he feels that that was not sufficient, or the modern stylistics also could not grasp the heteroglottic nature of the novel. And he says how language is heteroglottic inherently, and this is what enters into the novelistic discourse. And of course he mentions the five compositional units that make a novel. And also he says that a combination of these subordinate yet autonomous units is what gives the uniqueness to the novel. And this he says that language is stratified internally, and this stratification he refers to as heteroglossia. And he says that novelistic discourse has abundance of heteroglossia in it, in that till yesterday, till that point we have seen in the lecture. So let's continue this, and in that part itself, to continue in this essay, Bakhtin states that the language of poetry and novel are entirely different. So for him, the language in poetry and the language in the novel are completely different. There is no comparison at all. Actually, the old stylistics or traditional stylistics, even to some extent the modern stylistics also, could not succeed in bringing out the uniqueness of the novel because there was always a comparative method. Like they are used to bring out the stylistics of the language of poetry. They tried to bring out the or analysis of the novel in the similar manner. That is why it was insufficient. So Bakhtin says that they two, the language of poetry and the language of novel are two entirely different entities, and there is no relation between them. Moreover, he thinks that poetic language is very monologic or unitary in style and form. But and that is why he says that poetry demands the unity of language, and style, whereas the novel is completely opposite to this, because we have seen he says that novel is multi-form and variform. Okay, multi-form in style and variform in speech and voice. That is what he stated. So by his definition, we will very much understand that it is very much unlike the language of poetry. Hence, he says that the novelistic discourse and style cannot even be equated with the epic style. Of course, we may think that epic style is different, unlike, say, sonnet, lyric, or ode, etc. In epic, we have different characters, and the epic poets will be using different techniques also, and there are different characters, and each character may present his own point of view of the world, etc. But even then, Bakhtin, of course, is very much preoccupied with the greatness of the novel, and he says that we can't even compare the novelistic discourse, the style of novelistic prose or novelistic discourse, even to the epic style. And further, in that part of the essay, he refers to some of the Russian formalists by name Shapit and Vinogradov. These people actually have opined that novelistic discourse is similar to rhetoric. Rhetoric. Rhetoric is a very ancient form of, um, poetics or literature, and they feel that there were rhetorical elements which are involved in the novel, and that is why it becomes very uniqueness, okay, unique. And perhaps the uniqueness of the novel as an artistic genre, according to these Russian formalists, can be attributed to the rhetoric. But if even then, Bakhtin says that it is novel cannot be entirely placed under this rhetoric genre. And so he says that finally, novel is a combination of rhetorical and artistic forms. So there is rhetoric in the novel, and there of course are artistic forms as we have in poetry. So there, Bakhtin says that we have to look at the novel from this point of view. And he says that further in the essay, the modern stylistics also, have, attempted to bring the unitariness of language. And he states that they were all analyzing a language as if it is having centripetal forces or movement. Centripetal movement. You know what is a centipede? I think this in this area you call it as rockal banda something. Some insect, sorry, worm. And there, centripetal, it is having so many feet, but all those feet will move to one point only, or one side only. So that means whatever side it wants to go, with all its leg, it moves to one point or one side. In the similar manner, Bakhtin says that though there are many elements in the language, and we have seen how he was presenting the language as stratified, and language having so many aspects, angles, etc. But all those modern stylisticians try to present all these different elements of the language as if they were moving to one end only. That is called as the centripetal movement of language. And modern stylistics, based upon their what actually Bakhtin mentions is the philosophy of language, linguistics, stylistics. All these three areas have explored only to bring out the unitariness of the language, which is having a centripetal moment. Though language is comprised of many aspects, many concepts, etc., it is having one moment only. So instead, actually, Bakhtin says that language is having both centripetal and centrifugal, okay, centrifugal movement. But that aspect, according to Bakhtin, of course, is ignored. And he says further in this part of the essay that all schools of poetics, he refers to so many schools of poetics, beginning with Aristotle, okay, and then Descartes or Cartesian, he says, and then the medieval church, poetics of the medieval church, and then the abstract grammatical universalism of Leibniz. This is the idea of universal grammar. And then Humboldt's insistence on the concrete. All these schools of poetics, he says that they gave expression to the same centripetal forces in socio-linguistic and ideological life. They serve one and the same project of centralizing and unifying the European languages. This is that in spite of many aspects, in spite of multiple voices that are present in a language, all the ancient school of poetics till the modern schools of poetics also have attempted to bring out the unifying movement of language only. And he thinks that it is only to establish the of course supremacy, okay, which is reigning language or dialects. As we have discussed, how dialects will develop into a certain kind of language. Actually, if you go to the history of English language also, we have four dialects, and among those four, only London dialect was developed to become a standard kind of English in England. So why only London dialect? Why not the other dialects? There, of course, the language is not purely linguistic affair. It is all so many politics or socio-political, religious, economic issues, or power issues will be involved in making the language a dialect. So there he says that, Bakhtin says that the all European or the schools of poetics from ancient to modern, they have projected centralizing theory only. The victory of one reigning language over the others, the supplanting of languages, their enslavement, the process of illuminating them with the true word, the incorporation of barbarians and lower social strata into a unitary language of culture and truth, the canonization of ideological systems, philology with its methods of studying and teaching dead languages, languages that were by that very fact unities, Indo-European linguistics with its focus of attention directed away from language plurality to a single proto-language. So he says that this is actually in the colonialism also, where the colonial mission is to unify everything and to establish one order, one culture, or one government like that. So here he says that all European theories of poetics have always tried to bring out unifying of the European languages, one dominant unified power. So this is, in other words, we can equal this to the monologism, as we have already discussed, where all other voices are subsumed into one perspective of the world, one point of view of the world, and the prevalence or the privilege is given only to the one. As I told you, in the binaries we validate between the two, that is male or female or master or slave. I told you that only the first one is validated. In the similar manner, even this dominant cultures or dominant languages have tried to establish a kind of unitary. The words Bakhtin used are very important, ruling language. And then he says that all others are enslaved. All other languages are enslaved, and they were in the process of illuminating them with the true word. What is true word? Words, of course, are words. There are no true words, etc., according to Bakhtin. And truth, of course, according to post-structuralist theory, is not what do you say, stable, and we cannot say that truth is single, unitary also. So the word, the true word itself is questioned. So that is how he says that there were attempts even in the modern stylistics to make the language as a unitary form, rather than observing the multiple voices or multiple genres or languages within language. And also this unification, of course, theory, we can understand that that was used for uh, colonization of the other worlds, especially in the European, and if it is even within a nation, as I gave you the example of the repressive Stalinistic regime. So the Stalinistic regime is monologism, and of course Bakhtin is opposite or opposing that, and that is why he was forced to exile also. So this is how all the uh, unifying actually attempts as if they are not recognizing the existence of other forms of voices or languages, points of views of the world, etc. So this is how Bakhtin says that these the even modern stylistics is at fault not to recognize the heteroglottic nature of the novel. That is what he says. So in the next part of this essay, which is discourse in poetry and discourse in the novel, how there is discourse in poetry and discourse in the novel. In this part, actually, Bakhtin again, as I told you, the style of Bakhtin's writing is very repetitive, and he often goes back and then tries to bring in. So repetitively in this part also, he again goes to mention how modern stylistic was inefficient, not to bring out the dialogic nature of the novel. And again he also tries to present how novel is dialogic, as we have already seen that. And then he goes on to explain the nature of the word. So this, in this part, this is very important. So today I will be confining to this part very much. Actually, I am reading from the pages 276 and 277. So he says that, yeah, as treated by traditional stylistic thought, the word acknowledges only itself. He says that uh, traditional stylistics felt that the word will acknowledge itself only. That means with its own context, its own object, its own direct expression, and its own unitary and singular language. So the traditional stylistics always interpreted word as if it is unitary, and now he says that, but in reality words are not like that. Why? He says, no living word relates to its object in a singular way. So when a word is uttered, when the word is uttered and it enters into an atmosphere, okay, or what you call a dialogic world, it cannot be taken for granted that it will relate to its object in a singular way. Between the word and its object, Between the word and the speaking subject, there exists an elastic environment of other alien words about the same object, the same theme. And this is an environment that it is often difficult to penetrate. So Bakhtin says that word as presented by the traditional stylistics is not unitary, because when the word is uttered, it always enters into a dialogic environment, and it enters into the aligned words that are for the same object and same theme also. And he says it is precisely in this process of living interaction with this specific environment that the word may be individualized and given stylistic course finds the object at which it was directed already, as it were, overlain with qualifications as open to dispute, charged with value, already enveloped in an obscuring mist, or on the contrary, by the light of alien words that have already been spoken about it. So, when a word is uttered, it will not refer directly to the object. Regarding that word, there may be other ideas, other alien words, other kind of environment, other kinds of values, other kinds of disputes, all these words. So he says that thus the word directed towards its object enters a dialogically agitated and tension filled environment. So a word when uttered cannot be taken in one meaning according to Bhakti. A word always enters into an agitated, tension-filled environment. And then he says, this is stated by Bhaktin only to state that the word is actually not unitary. And further, he says that the way in which the word conceptualizes its object is a complex act. So, the how the word will conceptualize its object, it is a very complex process or act according to Bhaktin. This is what we have seen also in Sashur. Okay, further, he says that the word in the, thus it is as stated by Bhaktin, a word is entering into a dialogic world actually. So in this, uh, he says that in the novel actually, this word entering into the dialogic world is a very common thing for Bhaktin. He says that in the atmosphere of the novel, the direct and unmeditated intention of a word presents itself as something impressibly naive, something in fact impossible. And he says that uh, he says that the novel makes the word more dialogic. And whereas here, because he is presenting the discourse in poetry and discourse in the novel, so for him, novel is more discursive. And here he says, poetry locks the words. So poetry, poetry may have some symbols, some images which are very much interpreted in one particular way. Whereas in a novel, it's very different according to Bhaktin. So, the first thing you have to notice is that poetry locks the words. Poetry is not as discursive as the novel. So, in the words of Bhaktin, he says that A word when it enters into the poetry, the poetic genre, of course will get locked, and it always will give us unitary meanings only. It is unlike the novel, but the discourse in the novel is different. A word, when get in the atmosphere of the novel, of course, presents us different shades. Okay, as Bakhtin says, novel is multiform, variform in speech, voice, etc. And then he says, uh, the how the words are getting locked in poetry. For that he takes this image. Okay, so he says, in poetry the words get locked in their images. And then later he says that, um, in artistic prose, that is in novel, the word requires heteroglossia. So uh, words in novel are not get locked. Okay, they won't get locked. Um, and thus, in the artistic prose, they will acquire multiplicity. Heteroglottic multiplicity will be there in the words. And he says that words always encounter a dialogic orientation. So, in this part, he says that the dialogic orientation of discourse is a phenomenon that is, of course, a property of any discourse. Discourse in general, uh, he says that, is having a dialogic property. And according to Bakhtin, when it comes to the novel, it even more increases. Okay, he says that it is the natural orientation of any living discourse. Any discourse is dialogic, according to Bakhtin. And he says, even if you want to imagine something which is not dialogic, he says, on all its various routes toward the object in all its directions, the word encounters an alien word and cannot help encountering it in a living, tension filled interaction. So, of course, word is very discursive, and a dialogic orientation of discourse is a phenomena which is a property of any kind of discourse. He says that if you think that some words are not discursive, it that you can think only the mythical Adam, who approached a virginal and as yet verbally unqualified world with the first word, could really have escaped from start to finish this dialogic inter-orientation with the alien word that occurs in the object. So that means to the beginnings of the world he goes. Even if you want to find non-dialogic nature of the word in a discourse, you can find it only perhaps during Adam's time, because at that time it is a virginal and yet verbally unqualified world that Adam might have entered into, and Adam might have uttered words, and his word perhaps could not have find any dialogic world, according to Bakhtin. And so further he says that internal dialogism of the word, okay, the word according to Bakhtin is born in a dialogue as a living rejoinder within it. The world is shaped in dialogic interaction with an alien word that is already in the object. So, how word is dialogic, he says, and then um, he comes to the linguistics, the area of linguistics, and then he says that linguists, to some extent, have recognized the fact that the spoken word expects answer. That means linguists or linguistics has recognized the presence of the listener. The presence of the listener. It is not only the speaker. When the word is uttered, it is not only the speaker, but the listener's reception also will, what do you say, influence it. So he says that the linguists, of course, have recognized ignored the dynamism of the listener. Of course, when the listener listens, what is the guarantee that he will understand the speaker's word in only one way or one point of view, or which is his own point of view, the speaker's point of view? Of course, you can very easily answer this. You also know when we utter words to someone else, we often find the problem of getting misunderstood. So, we think that people are not able to understand what we say properly. Why it is happening? Because of the dialogic nature of the words only, according to Bhaktin. Because word when it is uttered is entering into a dialogic world, an environment of dialogism, where it may get affected with lean words, okay, or even if you go to Jakobson, it may get affected with emotive functions also. So, but even the emotive function, of course, they said about the speaker, not the listener. So Bhaktin refers to that, and he says that in this way the word is very dialogic. Uh, and he says that if we learn only the linguistic meaning of the word, it is not enough, because he thinks that the linguistic significance of a given utterance is understood against the background of language, while its actual meaning is understood against the background of other concrete utterances on on the same theme. So naturally, the linguistic meaning is different, but already the word, a particular word, might have acquired so much of what you say, mm, so much of properties that are dependent upon the existing discourses in the society. Say, for example, um, you talk of so many words like, who is a terrorist? If you know the linguistic meaning of the terrorist, we think that it is someone who is mm, attacking the other nations, or but a terrorist may be a what do you say, patriot for his own nation. Okay, so in this way, if you know only the linguistic meaning of the word, that is not enough, because the word actually uttered might have acquired so much of qualification by the existing background, or themes, value judgments, etc. Okay, and then uh, he says that a passive understanding of linguistic meaning is no understanding at all. So, because this will never include the richness of the word. So, the words are, according to Bhaktin, are very rich. They are not having only linguistic meaning, they may have social meaning, they may have religious meaning, they may have some other meaning also, as we have seen. And he further goes on that in the actual life of speech, every concrete act of understanding is active, and it assimilates the word to be understood into its own conceptual system filled with specific objects and emotional expressions. The primacy in the actual speech belong to response as the activating principle. It creates the ground for understanding. It prepares the ground for an active and engaged understanding. But according to Bakhtin, he says that the written word is unlike the speech, and a literary word is different from the speech, because um, in the speech he says the concrete act of understanding is very active, whereas in the literary word it may be passive, because the active understanding of the word unfolds a series of complex interrelationships, consonances, dissonances with the word and enriches it with new elements. So here he says that the word is having internal dialogism. That is, word with alien word, word with the listener, word and the response of the listener. This is how, when the words are uttered, of course, according to Bakhtin, they enter into a very dialogic world. And he gives the example of um, Tolstoy's work. And he says, discourse in Tolstoy is characterized by a sharp internal dialogism. There is internal dialogism in the discourse of Tolstoy. And he says that, okay, um, yeah, Tolstoy, according to Bakhtin, says that he believed, okay, sharp internal dialogism, and this discourse is moreover dialogized in the belief system of the reader. So, of course, readers should also believe uh, about the dialogism of Tolstoy, whose peculiar semantic and expressive characteristics Tolstoy acutely senses, as well as in the object. These two lines of dialogization. See, one is the internal dialogism of the word, and then the reader's beliefs. They both were taken into consideration by Tolstoy. And he says that these two lines are tightly interwoven in his style. He writes in such a manner that he interweaves these two lines of dialogism. Even in the most lyrical expressions and the most epic descriptions, Tolstoy's discourse harmonizes and disharmonizes, more often disharmonizes, with the various aspects of the heteroglot socio-verbal consciousness ensnaring the object and evaluative system, striving to stun and destroy the apperceptive background of the reader's active understanding. So he says that here Tolstoy can be equal to the 18th century Rousseau, and he, of course, says that Tolstoy is a great writer who, of course, could uh, amalgamate the two lines of dialogization of the word in his writing. Um, so further he says that the phenomenon of internal dialogization, as he has already said, is present to a greater or lesser extent in all realms of the life of the word. So he says that it is not only in a novel that this internal dialogization of the word will be evident, but in all realms of life, he says. And here, but if in extra artistic prose, that is, everyday rhetorical scholarly, dialogization usually stands apart, crystallizes into a special kind of act of its own, and runs its course in ordinary dialogue or in other compositionally clearly marked forms for mixing and polemicizing the discourse of another. Then, in artistic prose and especially in the novel, this dialogization penetrates from within the very way in which the word conceives its object and it means for expressing itself. So, this internal dialogization is present in almost all realms of the life, but Bakhtin says that when it comes to novel, of course, it penetrates very much deep into its object, and also it means for expressing itself. This is the novelistic discourse. And further, he says that in the majority of poetic genres, the internal dialogization of discourse is not put to artistic use, because why in the poetry the internal dialogization of the word is not put to use? Because we have already referred to this. Poetry is always attempting to lock the meaning of the words. So in poetry, words get locked in its images. So that is why, according to Bakhtin, the novelistic discourse is more dialogic than the discourse of the poetry. So, as I have told you that he keeps repeating all these points again and again. So, again here in this part also, he mentions the stratification of language and how language is dialogic, etc. And we can only conclude in this part how Bakhtin is presenting that the poetic language, discourse in poetry is unitary and getting locked without becoming dialogic. Whereas the discourse in the novel, by the nature of the word, the very nature of the word itself, of course, becomes more by using this dialogic nature of the word. Novel becomes more dialogic in its discourse, according to Bakhtin. So the next thing he mentions is actually heteroglossia in the novel, and this is more important. The heteroglossia in the novel is more important because we may get a question on that. This is heteroglossia of the novel, or you may be asked how novel is heteroglottic in nature, because he says that because of all the internal stratifications of the language that Bakhtin has already mentioned. So the next lecture I'll be starting that part, that is heteroglossia in novel. Uh, for now, I am closing. I think this part of the essay is of course very repetitive. Even if you read in the original text, also you will find it very much repeating again and again the same ideas. And he out of all the, what do you say, many passages that he writes again and again, we find recurring ideas. And this idea is only to say that a discourse in poetry gets locked, whereas discourse in the novel is very novel is very discursive or dialogic, because it uses the all the compositional units that Bakhtin has given. Okay, I am closing this session. I hope you will listen and you will follow that. If you have any doubts, please contact. And one more thing is, now you have to give your options for the elective. Please try to give, and it is not advisable to you know be in one elective, many members in one elective, and only few members in another elective. Try to be at least 50-50, if not at least 60-40, like that. So try to finalize this issue. And of course, I hope you will do it as early as possible, because the syllabus for the another paper should start for you. Okay, have a nice time.